On the night of December 8, 2015, 24-year-old Charlotte Brown, a bright and ambitious business consultant from Clacton, Essex, went on a date that would tragically be her last. Charlotte had met 28-year-old Jack Shepherd, a website designer from Devon, through a dating app. She was at the start of a promising career, known by friends and family for her sensible nature, strong values, and magnetic personality. In contrast, Jack had a reputation as a champagne Casanova, flashy, irresponsible, and drawn to reckless behavior. That evening, Jack tried to impress Charlotte with an extravagant night out. They dined at the Shard, drinking champagne and enjoying the view, before heading to the River Thames where Jack had something unusual planned, a late-night ride in his personal speedboat. The 14-foot Fletcher Aeroflight GTO, which Jack had purchased second-hand via Gumtree, was in poor condition and lacking basic safety features. He had no proper boating license or formal training, and the vessel itself was riddled with mechanical defects, including faulty steering. There were no life jackets on board, and the boat's kill cord, a crucial safety device designed to shut off the engine if the driver is thrown overboard, was not connected. As the couple set off from Hammersmith Bridge, the risks escalated quickly. Jack, having consumed significant amounts of alcohol, drove the boat dangerously fast, reaching speeds between 26 and 34 knots, well above the legal limit for that section of the Thames. Charlotte grew visibly concerned during the ride, sensing that something was not right. Tragically, her fears were well-founded. Near Wandsworth Bridge, the boat struck a submerged log and capsized. Both Charlotte and Jack were thrown into the freezing December waters. Jack was eventually found clinging to the overturned hull, yelling for help, but notably he only called out to save himself, not Charlotte. When rescue teams pulled Charlotte from the river, she was unconscious, her body temperature dangerously low at just 25 ADC due to cold water immersion. Despite resuscitation efforts, she was pronounced dead. An investigation into the incident revealed the extent of Jack's negligence. Not only was the boat unsafe and unfit for use, but Jack had knowingly put Charlotte in danger by taking her out in the vessel while drunk and without safety precautions. Despite this, instead of facing the consequences, Jack fled the country. He was located months later in Georgia, a move that infuriated the public, especially when it was revealed he had received taxpayer-funded legal aid while on the run. In July 2018, Jack Shepherd was found guilty of manslaughter by gross negligence in his absence. After his extradition from Georgia, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison for Charlotte's death, along with an additional 4 years for an unrelated assault. However, in January 2024, Shepherd was released after serving just half of his sentence, sparking renewed anger from Charlotte's family and the wider public. Charlotte's father has remained vocal about the injustice of the case, particularly frustrated by Jack's ongoing claim that Charlotte was steering the boat at the time of the crash, a claim that contradicts witness testimony and evidence. The tragic death of Charlotte Brown has served as a heartbreaking reminder of how reckless behavior and arrogance can lead to irreversible loss. Her family continues to campaign for justice and accountability, refusing to let her memory be overshadowed by Jack Shepherd's lies and evasions. Not every tragedy in the world of YouTube comes from solitude, mental illness, or the pull of danger in isolation. Some are born out of ambition, a high-stakes gamble for viral fame, where the cost is irreversible. And in the case of Pedro Ruiz III, it cost him everything. On June 26, 2017, 22-year-old Pedro Ruiz set out to film what he believed would be a viral moment for his new YouTube channel, Dammit Boy. The goal, instant internet stardom. The method, an unbelievably dangerous stunt involving a .50 caliber Desert Eagle handgun, a hardcover encyclopedia, and his pregnant girlfriend, Mona Lisa Perez, behind the trigger. Pedro had a vision. He wanted to be famous, not just well-known, but legendary. His mantra echoed the sentiment of many desperate creators hoping to break through the noise. I may fail, but if I fail, I want to die trying. And tragically, that's exactly what happened. The idea was simple and absurdly reckless. Pedro believed a thick hardcover book could stop a .50 caliber bullet, one of the most powerful handgun rounds in existence. Despite Mona's strong objections, which reportedly lasted for over a month, he managed to convince her to go through with it. She was pregnant with their second child at the time and clearly hesitant. But in the end, she agreed, reluctantly, believing Pedro had tested the stunt and that it was safe. Earlier that day, Mona had tweeted ominously, "Me and Pedro are probably going to shoot one of the most dangerous videos ever." They weren't alone. The stunt took place just outside their home in Hallstatt, Minnesota, with nearly 30 people watching, including their young daughter. Pedro stood holding the encyclopedia tightly to his chest. Mona stood just 1 foot away, Desert Eagle in hand. He reassured her, told her it would work. Then she pulled the trigger. The bullet tore through the book and into Pedro's chest, fatally wounding him. His final words captured just moments before the shot. "Stop, babe. Stop." Mona immediately called 911, panicked and sobbing, but it was too late. Pedro Ruiz III was pronounced dead at the scene. The aftermath was a legal and emotional nightmare. Perez was charged with second-degree manslaughter. During the trial, it became clear that this wasn't a moment of spontaneous foolishness. It was a premeditated stunt pushed forward by blind ambition, desperation, and internet pressure. She eventually pleaded guilty, receiving a 180-day jail sentence, 10 years of probation, and a lifetime ban on both owning firearms and profiting from the video. Her sentence was split, minus 90 days in jail, with the remainder served under house arrest. Mona's punishment, though light in comparison to the life lost, reflected the painful complexity of the case. She didn't intend to kill Pedro. She was manipulated, pressured, and emotionally cornered, but she still pulled the trigger. Pedro Ruiz's death quickly became a chilling example of the darker side of internet fame. The line between content and consequence blurred fatally. His story isn't just about one fatal mistake. It's a reflection of how far people are willing to go to be seen, to go viral, to feel significant in a world where attention has become a currency. No fame, no subscribers, no likes or views could ever justify the cost. Today, the video remains sealed, unreleased, and will never be legally monetized. But its story lingers, passed around YouTube forums, discussed on Reddit threads, whispered among aspiring creators. It has become a cautionary tale told not in views but in warning signs. Pedro Ruiz III died chasing fame, and his story stands as a haunting reminder: when the stakes are your life, there are no second takes. In the world of great exploration mysteries, few are as captivating or enduring as the disappearance of Colonel Percy Fawcett in the Amazon jungle in 1925. A decorated British explorer, Fawcett wasn't just any adventurer, he was one of the last of his kind, driven by an intense belief that somewhere deep in the uncharted heart of Brazil lay the ruins of a lost ancient civilization he called the City of Z. This wasn't some wild guess. Fawcett had combed through maps, historical accounts, indigenous stories, and archaeological hints suggesting that advanced societies may have once thrived in places modern science believed were uninhabitable. Determined to prove the skeptics wrong, he set off into the Amazon one final time, accompanied only by his 21-year-old son Jack and Jack's friend, Raleigh Ramel. It was a stripped-down expedition by design. Fawcett believed that smaller groups would draw less attention from potentially hostile tribes and move more efficiently through the dense jungle. Before departing, he sent letters back to Britain stating firmly that no one should come looking for them if they failed to return. It would be the last time anyone heard from them. What followed was one of the most haunting disappearances in exploration history. Fawcett's last known message came from a place he dubbed Dead Horse Camp, where he optimistically reported that all was well and they were heading deeper into the forest. And then nothing. For decades, their fate remained a complete mystery. Did they succumb to disease, starvation, or the countless dangers lurking in the Amazon? Were they killed by a hostile tribe? Or, most tantalizing of all, did they actually find the city and choose to stay hidden from the outside world? The mystery drew in searchers and dreamers alike. Over 100 people reportedly died trying to retrace Fawcett's path, many of them driven by the same obsession with the unknown that led Fawcett into the jungle in the first place. Theories began to multiply like vines in the rainforest. Some claimed the group was killed by tribes who misunderstood their intentions. Others believed they were adopted into an indigenous community and chose never to return. More far-fetched versions included alien abduction, portals to another dimension, or even that Fawcett had gone mad and established a new society in the jungle. What makes the story even more fascinating is that modern science has started to catch up with Fawcett's hunches. While his mythical Z might not exist in the form he imagined, recent discoveries using satellite imagery and LiDAR technology have revealed massive earthworks and road systems buried beneath the rainforest canopy, evidence of large, complex settlements that predate European colonization. In a way, Fawcett wasn't wrong. His conviction that ancient civilizations could flourish in the Amazon, long dismissed by Western academia as fantasy, is now being taken very seriously by archaeologists. His tragic journey wasn't in vain. It helped keep alive the idea that there is always more to discover, even in a world we think we've mapped. Today, Percy Fawcett's story lives on not just in history books, but in films like The Lost City of Z, which dramatizes his final expedition, and in countless documentaries and articles that continue to probe the mystery. Was he a visionary or a man consumed by myth? Perhaps both. What's clear is that his legacy has inspired generations of explorers, scientists, and storytellers to keep asking questions, to keep searching the unknown, and to respect the secrets that still lie buried in the world's last true frontiers. The jungle may have claimed his body, but not his legend. Luis Fernando Cavalos was 24. Alexis Rodriguez was 27. The two met online and after some chatting decided to finally meet in person. It was August 21st, 2021, a warm, peaceful summer night in North Bergen, New Jersey. You can imagine the nerves, the excitement, maybe even a little spark. Their first date went well, at least well enough that Luis offered to drive Alexis home in his brand new 2022 Kia Stinger. But that night, filled with possibility, was about to take a tragic turn. Luis, clearly proud of his sleek new car, decided to show off a little or a lot. He began speeding through the quiet streets, pushing the engine hard, redlining it, roaring past intersections with the confidence only someone with a new toy and a bit of adrenaline could have. Just before 2 a.m., Officer John Nunes, who was sitting nearby, saw the Kia fly by. His radar clocked Luis at over 100 miles per hour. On top of that, he'd run a red light and was breaking a provisional license restriction. Nunes pulled the car over. In body cam footage, you can hear Alexis trying to take the blame, saying she was the reason they were in such a rush. But the officer calmly reminded her that while she may have influenced the situation, it was Luis who was behind the wheel, and it was his responsibility to drive safely. Nunes cited him for 3 violations: reckless driving, running a red light, and driving outside his permitted hours. But he actually showed some mercy, choosing not to slap him with more serious penalties. He let them go with a stern warning. Slow down, go straight home, don't do anything stupid. But the warning didn't stick. Just 13 minutes later, Officer Nunes was called to respond to a major crash nearby, and when he arrived on the scene, he was horrified to realize it was the same Kia he'd just pulled over. The car was mangled beyond recognition. Luis had crashed at high speed into the back of a tractor trailer that was making a delivery. The impact was so violent that the front of the car slid under the trailer and tore the roof clean off. The vehicle spun out and slammed into a wall. By the time Nunes got there, both Luis and Alexis were dead. They'd been practically cut in half. It was gruesome, devastating. Investigators later pulled the vehicle's black box data. Just seconds before the crash, Luis had been going 124 miles per hour. That's nearly 200 kilometers an hour. Even though he hit the brakes, he was still flying at 68 miles per hour when the impact happened. According to the report, the entire crash could have been avoided if Luis had just followed the law. If he'd simply listened to the warning he was given 13 minutes earlier, both he and Alexis would likely still be alive. It's hard not to feel for Alexis's family. Their daughter had just gone on a first date with a guy she met online, and that was it. One night, one decision, and she never came home. And honestly, it doesn't matter who said what in that car. The second your hands are on the wheel, you're in charge. You have a responsibility, especially with someone else in your passenger seat. This was a date that could have ended with a goodnight kiss. Instead, it ended in tragedy, a brutal reminder that driving recklessly isn't cool. It's deadly. From the moment Greg Plitt appeared on screen, there was no mistaking his presence. He radiated raw intensity, a man fueled by discipline, purpose, and unshakable drive. Greg wasn't just another fitness influencer. He was a force of nature. A former Army Ranger and West Point graduate, he had jumped from over 1,000 planes during his military service, bringing that same fierce energy into everything he did. When he entered the fitness world, he didn't just talk about motivation, he lived it. His YouTube channel, launched in 2009, quickly became more than a collection of workout videos. It was a digital battlefield where Greg challenged his followers to push past their limits. With over 120 videos, his message was consistent and powerful. Train harder, think sharper, and live with no excuses. Every video felt like a personal challenge, delivered with the tone of a drill sergeant and the heart of a true believer. "You've got more inside of you than you know," he'd say. "Stop selling yourself short." He inspired thousands to break through mental and physical barriers, to embrace discomfort as the price of progress. Pain wasn't to be avoided. It was a sign that you were doing something right. Greg's life was a testament to that belief. He pushed boundaries, he chased greatness, and tragically in the end it was that same relentless pursuit that cost him his life. In January 2015, while filming promotional footage for his fitness brand, Greg set up near active train tracks in Burbank, California. The idea was likely to capture an intense cinematic shot, him running along the tracks, full throttle. Some reports claim he was trying to outrun the train for dramatic effect. Others believe he simply misjudged the timing or his surroundings. Witnesses said he was dressed in all black. He had a camcorder in his hand. And then just like that, he was gone. A Metrolink commuter train struck him mid-shot. One witness described watching security footage that showed Greg stumbling on the tracks just as the train barreled through. The train went by, they said. I saw him stumble over the tracks, and then that was it. Greg had filmed on train tracks before, including daring stunts like doing push-ups between the rails. To him, danger may have felt like just another obstacle to overcome, but this time, it proved too much. His death sent shockwaves through the fitness and YouTube communities. It was a tragic reminder of how thin the line can be between pushing limits and risking it all. Greg Plitt lived like a man on fire, always in motion, always chasing the edge. His message still echoes in the minds of those he inspired. Don't settle, don't quit, live with everything you've got. But in that pursuit of greatness, even someone as unstoppable as Greg could fall. His final moment, unintentionally caught on camera, wasn't just a tragedy. It was a haunting example of how far some will go to fuel their passion. In 2006, David Sharp, a 34-year-old British climber with a love for mountaineering and a passion for pushing limits, set his sights on summiting Mount Everest, the highest peak in the world. He was not part of a large expedition, nor did he have a team of Sherpas helping him along the way. He chose to climb solo, carrying limited oxygen and minimal gear, hoping to rely on grit and determination rather than luxury and support. David had previously attempted Everest in 2003 but turned back. This time he was determined to reach the top, climbing from the Tibetan side along the notoriously challenging North Face route. Unlike the crowded and commercialized southern route, the northern side is colder, windier, and has fewer climbers around. Sharp did make it to the summit, which is a remarkable achievement, but the mountain does not let anyone off easy. On his descent, he encountered serious problems. Somewhere around 8,500 meters in an area called Green Boots Cave, he stopped to rest. This cave, marked by the body of a long-dead climber wearing neon green boots, is infamous as a landmark on the trail. Unfortunately, David was already severely weakened by the extreme altitude, lack of oxygen, and exposure. He sat down, too exhausted to move, and remained there. Now here is where things get ethically murky. That day, over 40 other climbers passed by David Sharp as he sat there alive but dying. Some thought he was already dead. Others realized he was alive but assumed he was beyond saving or felt they could not help without risking their own lives. One climber, Mark Inglis, a double amputee from New Zealand, later stated that David was non-responsive and that it was too dangerous to attempt a rescue at that altitude. This sparked a firestorm of controversy. The world was shocked that someone could be left to die while so many walked by. Media outlets picked up the story, and it became a global debate about the ethics of extreme mountaineering. Do you push on toward the summit at all costs, or do you turn back and try to save a fellow human being, even if it jeopardizes your own survival? Sir Edmund Hillary, the first man to summit Everest, was openly critical. He said no summit is worth a life, and that something had gone seriously wrong in the climbing culture if people could step over a dying man in pursuit of a goal. Other climbers defended the decisions made that day, arguing that above 8,000 meters, known as the death zone, every step is a struggle, and rescuing someone could be physically impossible. David Sharp's story became more than just another tragedy on Everest. It became a symbol of the fine line between ambition and ethics in the mountains. His death served as a wake-up call to the climbing community. Since then, some changes have been made. Expeditions now often carry more supplemental oxygen, teams are more prepared for emergencies, and climbers are encouraged to make decisions not just based on success, but on safety and morality. Still, Sharp's fate hangs heavy over Everest, like the thin air near its peak. It is a chilling reminder that the mountain is not just a place of dreams and glory, but also of harsh truths and unforgiving consequences. Everest is majestic, but it does not care how strong your will is or how pure your passion. It demands respect, and sometimes even that is not enough. David Sharp's story will always serve as a sobering example of what can happen when human ambition meets the brutal indifference of nature. On March 30th, 2016, in Sydney, Australia, Keith Collins, a 53-year-old businessman, was ready to begin a fresh chapter in his life, hopeful for love and new beginnings. Just days earlier, he had connected with a woman on Tinder, the popular dating app. Their conversations had flowed easily, and they decided to meet face-to-face. That evening was meant to be a simple, joyful first date. Keith was recently separated from his long-term partner and eager to move forward. The woman he met was Jovi Pillapil, 39, a mother of 3 and deputy director of nursing at Uniting Aged Care. They bonded over shared values, especially their dedication to their children. Keith was a father of 4 and a stepfather to 3 more. On that night, the couple met for dinner at Kangnam BBQ, a bustling restaurant inside Westfield Hornsby, a suburb north of Sydney. It was around 9:30 p.m., and the place was packed with diners enjoying their evening. But the night would soon turn into a nightmare. A man entered the restaurant, 45-year-old Alexander Villaluna, dressed in military-style clothing and exuding a menacing presence. Villaluna was Jovi's estranged ex-husband, a man with a history of stalking, abuse, and threats directed at her. That evening, he had been desperately searching for Jovi, contacting her family and workplace in an attempt to find her. Finally, his search ended at the crowded restaurant, where he spotted Jovi and Keith. Driven by jealousy and rage, Villaluna made his way to their table. Without warning, he confronted Keith from behind, demanding to know what he was doing with his wife. Then, horrifyingly, Villaluna pulled out a hunting knife. In front of shocked diners, he plunged the blade deep into Keith's neck and collarbone, then continued stabbing him repeatedly, targeting his neck and stomach with brutal relentlessness. During the chaos, Jovi tried to get up and defend herself. Villaluna immediately turned his fury towards her, slashing her arm and stabbing her in the abdomen. Then, horrifyingly, he returned to Keith, who was already gravely wounded. Keith summoned every last ounce of strength to crawl away from the attacker. But Villaluna pinned him down, pressing his knee on Keith as he stabbed him over and over until Keith stopped moving. Witnesses described the attack as terrifyingly calm and methodical, a brutal assault carried out with chilling composure. In the aftermath, a badly injured Jovi managed to escape and find refuge in a nearby shop. Meanwhile, Villaluna, covered in blood and still clutching his knife, walked calmly through the terrified crowd. There was no sign of remorse or panic, just eerie composure. He even sat by a fountain and reportedly called Jovi's daughter, calmly admitting he thought he had killed the man and stabbed Jovi as well. Police arrived quickly. Officers confronted Villaluna, with one brandishing a taser. Footage from the scene shows Villaluna surrendering peacefully, hands covered in blood. Emergency responders rushed Jovi to Royal North Shore Hospital, where she underwent surgery for multiple wounds, including a punctured sternum. Sadly, nothing could save Keith Collins. He died from his injuries. Keith was remembered by friends, family, and the community as a generous and well-liked man. As managing director of Elite Packaging Solutions in West Gosford, he was a respected businessman. Beyond that, he was deeply committed to youth sports, serving as president and junior coach of the Terrigal-Wamberal Sharks Junior Rugby League Club. He often employed young players and sponsored local teams, inspiring many with his kindness and leadership. His death left a devastating void in the lives of those who knew him. Alexander Villaluna was later sentenced to a maximum of 34 years in prison for murder and 12 years for wounding, with a non-parole period of 30 years. In March 2014, a video appeared on the Whirlpool Hitman YouTube channel, opening with a haunting quote, "Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever." At first glance, it seemed like just another entry from a man known for towing the line between thrill and chaos. But behind that channel and behind the camera was Jacob Koschel, a 28-year-old adrenaline junkie from West Cornwall, England, whose obsession with danger would eventually become his undoing. Jacob wasn't your average daredevil. His channel was part extreme sports archive, part philosophical diary. Viewers followed him through daring stunts, cave dives, cliff jumps, storm swims. But the one motif that appeared again and again was his fixation with whirlpools. These swirling vortexes of dark water, mysterious and deadly, seemed to represent something more to Jacob. A challenge, a test, maybe even a kind of spiritual force. On May 28, 2013, one of those whirlpools appeared at Sannon Cove, a rugged coastal inlet Jacob knew well. But this wasn't like the others. It was massive, wild, alive, and like a moth drawn to flame, Jacob couldn't resist. He had to go in, and he had to film it. He called his friend David Rain to help document the stunt. Ever the showman, Jacob added a bizarre touch to the scene. He wore a rubber horse mask. His stunts were always laced with dark humor, absurdity, and a sense that he didn't just want to defy death, he wanted to make it a spectacle. The whirlpool churned as Jacob dove in, and at first everything seemed in control. David filmed from the rocks, joking along, then slowly growing uneasy. 30 minutes passed. Jacob swam through the current like a surfer, at one point comparing the sensation to riding a wave. "It's really similar to surfing, just flowing with it," he said, trying to make light of the deadly pull beneath him. David, sensing it was enough, urged Jacob to stop. "I reckon you got enough. You got enough footage?" But Jacob wasn't done. Not yet. He asked for a stick-mounted GoPro to capture a deeper angle, from inside the whirlpool itself. He dove again, and this time he didn't come back up. Seconds passed, then minutes. Panic set in. David, now frantic, scrambled down the rocks and dove into the water himself. What he found was not the fearless adventurer grinning through another brush with death, but Jacob's lifeless body, face down, caught in the water's relentless pull. The footage was eventually uploaded to Jacob's channel posthumously, and the quote at the start, once playful, even inspiring, now struck like a ghost's whisper. It was no longer just a line. It was a premonition. Jacob Koschel had spent his life dancing along the edge, filming every leap, every dive, every near miss. But this time the whirlpool won. His funeral was packed beyond capacity. The church overflowed. People filled the streets outside, there not just to mourn, but to honor someone who had truly lived loudly, dangerously, and unapologetically. Jacob wasn't just a daredevil. To many, he was a philosopher of risk, a man who found meaning in the things most people avoided. In the end, Jacob Koschel didn't just chase the thrill. He became it, forever frozen in that final video, diving into the spinning abyss one last time. Michael de Gruy was a man whose passion for the ocean ran as deep as the trenches he explored. A renowned underwater cinematographer, filmmaker, and ocean advocate, de Gruy wasn't just a guy behind a camera, he was a force of nature, known for bringing the mysteries of the deep to living rooms around the world. With an infectious energy and a love for storytelling, he transformed the scientific into the spectacular, making marine biology feel like a grand adventure. But in a tragic and unexpected turn, the life of this fearless explorer was cut short, not by the wild, untamed ocean he adored, but by a helicopter crash on a clear afternoon in Australia. On February 4th, 2012, Michael de Gruy, aged 60, was in New South Wales to begin work on yet another ambitious ocean documentary. He was joined by Australian filmmaker and producer Andrew White, a close collaborator of director James Cameron, and the creative mind behind the film Sanctum. The two were scouting locations for an upcoming deep-sea project, likely filled with the kind of thrilling, visually rich content that had become de Gruy's signature. That afternoon, they boarded a Robinson R-44 helicopter at a small airfield near Nora. Shortly after takeoff, the aircraft veered left, lost control, and crashed, bursting into flames. Both men were killed instantly. For someone like de Gruy, who had survived shark bites, deep ocean dives, and countless underwater hazards, the idea that his life would end so abruptly on land felt almost surreal. It was a cruel irony that someone who had danced with danger in the most remote corners of the planet would lose his life during what should have been a routine flight. The loss was felt deeply across the scientific and filmmaking communities. Tributes poured in from around the world, remembering not just a brilliant filmmaker, but a man who inspired others to care about the oceans with unmatched enthusiasm. De Gruy's work had always gone beyond just capturing beautiful footage. He wanted people to feel something, to connect with the deep sea in ways that sparked curiosity, empathy, and urgency. He was outspoken about protecting marine ecosystems and was especially passionate about the need for sustainable stewardship of the planet's oceans. His TED Talk, delivered just months before his death, echoed that message. We must do better for the oceans, and we must act now. Colleagues often described him as someone who radiated intensity and warmth in equal measure. Whether he was filming rare creatures in pitch-black depths or speaking at conferences with a contagious gleam in his eye, de Gruy had a way of making people listen and care. His collaborations with National Geographic, the BBC, and Discovery brought us breathtaking footage from places few had ever seen, and even fewer dared to go. He turned the alien world beneath the waves into something familiar, even magical. His death, alongside Andrew White, was not just the loss of two great storytellers. It was the loss of visionaries, Both men dedicated their lives to exploring and documenting the world in order to better understand and protect it. And though their final journey ended far too soon, their work continues to inspire a new generation of filmmakers, scientists, and dreamers. Michael DeGruy once said, "I want people to love the ocean before it's too late." That mission still stands. His legacy lives on in every film, every lecture, every child who now wants to become a marine biologist because of something they saw in one of his documentaries. The deep sea may be a little darker without his light, but his message continues to ripple through the waves and through us. On July 29, 2012, Wariana Wright, a 26-year-old woman from New Zealand, arrived in Australia for a 2-week holiday and to attend a wedding. Known as Ree to her friends and family, she was cheerful, intelligent, and deeply cared about her relationships and animals. Her life, full of promise, would end tragically after a night with a man she met on Tinder. During her vacation, Wariana met Gable Toast, a 30-year-old carpet fitter from the Gold Coast. Gable had a loud personality and was known for recording his interactions with women. He lived in the Avalon Apartments complex, which offered sweeping views of surfers' paradise, often said to impress women. On August 7, 2014, Wariana and Gable met for their first date near his apartment. Their night started normally with drinks and conversation, and they eventually went to his apartment. As the evening went on and alcohol was consumed, the mood changed. Gable's habit of recording the date captured a heated argument between them. At one point, Gable ominously remarked how dangerous it would be to fall from his balcony. Wariana's behavior reportedly became erratic and aggressive. She threw decorative rocks and tried to hit Gable with a telescope. Gable physically restrained her to calm the situation. After midnight on August 8th, Gable locked Wariana out on the 14th floor balcony, a decision that would have fatal consequences. The recording revealed Wariana screaming and begging to be let inside, but Gable refused, effectively trapping her outside. At one point, he threatened her, saying she was lucky he hadn't thrown her off the balcony. Her desperate cries faded as the recording went silent except for faint screams. Trapped and terrified, Wariana tried to lower herself to the balcony below. However, intoxicated and unsteady, she lost her grip and fell to her death. After realizing what happened, Gable called his father, suggesting Wariana might have jumped. He then left his apartment through a back exit, ordered pizza, and wandered the streets before contacting a lawyer. His strange behavior, alongside the recording, made authorities suspect he was more involved than he claimed. The subsequent trial drew significant attention and division. Prosecutors argued that Gable's aggressive threats and actions had driven Wariana to such fear that she saw no choice but to attempt climbing down the building's exterior, leading to her death. Crown Prosecutor Glenn Cash maintained Gable's behavior left her no safe options. The defense countered that Gable acted in self-defense, restraining Wariana after she became violent. They claimed locking her out was a measure to protect himself, not to harm her, and that he did not intend her death. They described the tragedy as an accident. The jury faced a difficult decision, whether Gable's actions amounted to murder, manslaughter, or an unfortunate accident. After days of deliberation, Gable Toast was acquitted of both murder and manslaughter. The verdict left many feeling uneasy, with some believing justice had not been served for Wariana, whose promising life ended so tragically. For her family, the loss was made even harder by a legal outcome that offered little closure. James Stobe, better known to his fans as Stobe the Hobo, wasn't your typical YouTuber. While most creators stuck to vlogs, games, or tutorials, Stowe lived and filmed a life that felt ripped from the pages of an old American novel. His channel chronicled his travels as a modern-day vagabond, hopping freight trains across the United States with a camera, a backpack, and a fearless spirit. There was something oddly calming about watching him. Perched on the edge of a boxcar as the world blurred by, he'd narrate in a soft, dry voice, observing landscapes, joking about random towns, or commenting on the strange beauty of America's forgotten rails. In one video, he casually remarked, "We'll be crossing the Red River into North Dakota and Fargo," which looks a little more interesting. But make no mistake, Stowe's lifestyle was anything but safe. Train hopping isn't a hobby. It's illegal, unpredictable, and incredibly dangerous. And that's exactly what drew James in. The solitude, the unfiltered freedom, and the uncharted path were all part of the ride. He captured America in a way no travel vlogger could, from the gritty underbellies of cities to the silent stretch of plains rolling past. His videos weren't just entertainment. They were raw, poetic, and strangely philosophical. Then came November 8th, 2017, the day the rails finally took him. James was killed in what was described as a train accident in Baltimore, but the exact details remain cloaked in mystery. Some reports claimed his backpack got snagged on a passing Amtrak train as he stood on a bridge, yanking him off balance. Others suggested he slipped from an overpass. No official story ever fully emerged. The silence around his death only deepened the sense of loss. Fans speculated, but his family, grieving deeply, asked for privacy, and the community respected that. Tributes began pouring in. One of his close friends, a fellow rail rider known as Spike, posted a somber video. "Jim and I go back many, many, many years," he said, fighting through emotion. "Last week, Jim was killed in a freak accident involving an Amtrak train. Today was the saddest day of my life." On November 20th, just 12 days after the accident, James was laid to rest. Stobe the hobo wasn't just a thrill seeker. He was a philosopher of the forgotten, a man who saw beauty where others saw rust and ruin. He reminded people that the world is bigger than the paths we're told to follow, that there's still room to wander. He wasn't reckless for the sake of clicks. He was intentional, poetic, and passionate about capturing the soul of America from the back of a moving train. Even in death, there's a strange, haunting poetry to his story. It's tragic, yes, but it's also almost fitting. He died the way he lived, on the rails, chasing freedom, with the wind in his face and the world rolling beneath him. Stobe the hobo will be remembered not just as a YouTuber, but as a modern outlaw poet, a man who embraced the forgotten roads and lived, truly lived, in a way most of us only dream of. In June 2016, Yellowstone National Park, a place known for its raw, untouched beauty and otherworldly geothermal features, became the backdrop for a heartbreaking and deeply sobering incident. Colin Scott, a 23-year-old from Oregon, and his sister Sable were visiting the Norris Geyser Basin, one of the hottest and most dangerous thermal areas in the entire park. That afternoon, they made a decision that would change everything. They stepped off the designated boardwalk and ventured into the restricted geothermal zone, searching for a natural hot spring to soak in, an illegal and highly discouraged activity known as hot potting. As they wandered more than 200 yards into the basin, Sable recorded their exploration on her phone. The footage would later become part of a National Park Service report, detailing the moments leading up to the tragedy. Colin approached the edge of a hot spring, knelt down, and attempted to test the water temperature, but the fragile, unstable crust of the ground gave way beneath him. In an instant, he fell into a pool of boiling, acidic water. The temperature in these springs can reach over 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and many are extremely acidic due to the high concentrations of sulfur and other minerals. What might look like calm, steaming water on the surface is, in reality, a deadly mix of scalding temperatures and chemical activity. Rangers were called immediately, and they arrived at the scene later that day. They were able to briefly spot Colin's remains, his head and upper torso, in the pool, but worsening weather conditions, including lightning storms, forced them to abandon the recovery effort that evening. By the time they returned the next day, there was nothing left to recover. The heat and acidity of the spring had completely dissolved his body overnight. Only Colin's wallet and a pair of flip-flops remained on the edge of the spring, serving as haunting reminders of what had happened. The tragedy of Colin Scott is not just a shocking tale. It is a grim reminder of the hidden dangers that lie beneath Yellowstone's scenic surface. Since the late 1800s, more than 20 people have died from thermal-related incidents in the park, often due to similar decisions to leave marked paths or ignore warning signs. The park staff repeatedly stresses that the boardwalks and trails are not there to restrict exploration. They exist because the landscape is unpredictable and deadly. What may appear to be solid ground can actually be a thin crust covering scalding acidic water just inches below. Colin's death sparked national conversations about park safety, visitor education, and the need for more awareness about the risks of geothermal areas. Park rangers continually work to prevent these types of tragedies, but they also face the reality that many visitors underestimate the danger or overestimate their own understanding of the environment. In this case, the desire for a unique experience, a private soak in a natural spring, came at the highest possible cost. At its core, this story is not about recklessness, but about how quickly a series of seemingly small decisions can lead to irreversible consequences. Yellowstone is a place of wonder, but it demands respect. Its geothermal features are some of the most volatile and dangerous on Earth, and they do not allow second chances. Colin Scott's story is a painful lesson, one that underscores the importance of listening to warnings, respecting nature's power, and understanding that not all beauty is meant to be touched. In April 2016, 40-year-old Ingrid Line, a dedicated nurse and mother of 3 from Renton, Washington, was searching for a new beginning after her recent divorce. Known for her kindness, strong work ethic, and devotion to her daughters, Ingrid had focused much of her energy on raising her children and building a life rooted in care and stability. But like many, she still longed for companionship. Looking to rebuild her personal life, Ingrid turned to online dating, where she met a man named John Robert Charlton. The two began seeing each other, and on April 8th, they made plans for what appeared to be a simple night out, a Seattle Mariners baseball game. According to Charlton, they returned to Ingrid's home in Renton afterward, but what seemed like a normal date quickly turned into a nightmare. The next day, Ingrid failed to show up for work, something that was completely out of character. Friends and family quickly became alarmed when they couldn't reach her. Concern turned to panic, and soon Ingrid was reported missing. A search was launched, but just 2 days later, that search ended in horror. A Seattle resident, Mike Novation, made a grim discovery when he noticed several heavy garbage bags in his recycling bin. Through the plastic, he could see what appeared to be the outline of a human face, a moment he later described as haunting. Inside the bags were dismembered human remains, a head, an arm, and a leg. Police were quickly alerted, and it didn't take long for investigators to connect the remains to Ingrid Line and to her last known companion, John Charlton. Charlton was brought in for questioning, but his version of events was vague and suspicious. He claimed that after attending the game and going to a bar with Ingrid, he became so intoxicated that he had no memory of what followed. He even told police he had slept on a sidewalk that night. His account was riddled with inconsistencies and glaring omissions, especially considering what was soon uncovered at Ingrid's home. Inside her house, detectives found a disturbing and bloody scene. In the bathroom, they discovered a 15-inch pruning saw used in the dismemberment. Blood and pieces of tissue were also found, providing undeniable evidence of the brutal crime that had occurred there. Forensic analysis confirmed that Charlton had strangled Ingrid before cutting up her body and placing the parts into plastic bags, which he later disposed of in a random recycling bin. The case against Charlton quickly mounted. The physical evidence, his deceptive statements, and his erratic behavior pointed to one conclusion. He was arrested and charged with Ingrid Line's murder. During his trial, Charlton expressed remorse, but it did little to change the outcome. The court found him guilty, and he was sentenced to 27 years and 9 months in prison, the maximum punishment permitted under Washington state guidelines. Yet for Ingrid's loved ones, especially her 3 daughters, the sentence couldn't begin to fill the void left behind. In court, Ingrid's ex-husband, Phil Line, spoke emotionally about the loss. He emphasized that Charlton had taken someone who was never his to take, a mother, a nurse, a friend. Ingrid's death served as a chilling reminder of the potential dangers that can lurk behind seemingly ordinary online interactions, and of how one person's evil intentions can tear through the lives of many, leaving behind only grief, shock, and unanswered questions. Not every YouTube journey begins with a camera and ends in freedom or adventure. Some start with a dream, simple, innocent, and end in heartbreak. That was the case with 13-year-old Harley Dilley, a bright, hopeful kid from Port Clinton, Ohio, who wanted to become a YouTuber like so many his age. On August 20th, 2019, Harley launched his second channel, Harley Dilley 2.0. His content was typical of a middle schooler with big online ambitions, mostly mobile Madden NFL 20 gameplay, sprinkled with the occasional vlog or commentary. He wasn't chasing fame with flashy edits or viral stunts. He just wanted to have fun, share his world, and be part of the digital age. But just 4 months later, on December 20th, Harley left for school and vanished. He never arrived at class. He never returned home. And alarmingly, his disappearance wasn't reported until 40 hours later, a delay that triggered widespread concern and suspicion, especially toward his family. Online communities, including Reddit, began to dig deeper. Rumors surfaced suggesting Harley's home life may not have been stable. Some users claimed he was often left outside or locked out by his parents. A few even found older clips of Harley mentioning arguments at home. In one recording, he recalled a confrontation with his mother. "My mom wanted me to go with her to get a friend, and I said, I don't want to. I have work to do. I want to go home and stay." We argued for about 5 minutes. Then she snapped, said she was going to call the police, said she already did. Though no confirmed evidence pointed to outright abuse, these comments painted a troubling picture. Meanwhile, Harley's disappearance was consuming the small town. Volunteers joined police in daily searches. Candlelight vigils were held, Flyers papered the streets. His name became a rallying cry, not just for finding a missing boy, but for protecting children in general. Weeks passed. Christmas came and went. Still no sign of Harley. Then, on January 13th, 2020, nearly a month after he vanished, the search came to a heartbreaking end. Harley's body was discovered inside the chimney of a vacant home just across the street from his own house. Investigators concluded that he had climbed onto the roof and attempted to enter through the chimney, likely in an effort to get inside, possibly to escape the cold or hide after an argument. He became wedged, unable to move, and is believed to have died from asphyxiation. The discovery shocked the community and devastated those who had held out hope. Questions lingered. Why didn't anyone hear him? Was he running away? Was he trying to create content? Investigators found no evidence that he was filming anything at the time, and no foul play was suspected. But the situation felt so strange, so tragic, that speculation never fully disappeared. His death hit the internet hard. He wasn't a viral star. He wasn't known for controversy or extreme content. He was just a kid with a smartphone, a dream, and a YouTube channel. That made the loss all the more painful. A local reporter covering his memorial summed it up. The city of Port Clinton continues to rally tonight for Harley Dilley, the teenager who got trapped and died in a chimney. In the end, Harley Dilley's story became a sobering reminder of how dreams can unravel, how youth doesn't guarantee safety, and how tragedy can strike in the quietest, most unexpected ways. He simply wanted to be heard, and now, through heartbreak, the world is still listening. If you've ever felt claustrophobic in an elevator or stuck in a crowded subway, that's just a tiny glimpse of what John Edward Jones went through in one of the most haunting caving accidents in modern history. It was Thanksgiving week 2009 when 26-year-old John, an ambitious medical student, devoted husband and father to a 1-year-old daughter, decided to go on a caving trip with family and friends in Utah. Their destination was Nutty Putty Cave, a notorious spot for thrill-seeking adventurers, known just as much for its winding, twisty passages as it was for its history of trapping unprepared explorers. John had caved before and was familiar with the risks, but nothing could have prepared him or anyone else for what was about to happen that night. Nutty Putty Cave isn't your average walk-in cave. It's a labyrinth of narrow crawl spaces and tight squeezes, some with names like the Birth Canal and the Big Slide. At around 8 p.m. on November 24th, John entered what he believed to be a familiar section. But in a tragic mistake, he veered into an uncharted, nearly vertical crevice that dropped down at a sharp angle. Crawling in head first, he quickly realized it was a dead end, but not before becoming stuck. Not just wedged in a tight spot stuck. We're talking upside down, body folded, chest compressed, legs dangling behind him, stuck inside a fissure barely 10 inches wide and 18 inches high. From there, the nightmare began. John was pinned 100 feet below the surface and at least 400 feet from the cave entrance. Rescuers were called in almost immediately. Over 130 volunteers and emergency personnel arrived, working in rotating shifts to reach him. They brought him food, water, and even tried to boost his morale. His voice reportedly remained calm and hopeful for much of the ordeal, even managing to talk to his wife via phone line. Rescuers used pulleys, harnesses, and drills to try and pull him free, but the cave fought back. At one point, John was actually moved slightly, just inches, but then disaster struck. A pulley system failed, and he slipped even deeper into the crevice, his position becoming even more dire. As the hours dragged on, John's upside-down posture caused his blood to pool in his upper body, compressing his organs and making breathing increasingly difficult. Despite the heroic efforts of rescue teams, some of whom risked their lives trying to reach him, it became clear that he couldn't be freed without extreme danger to everyone involved. After 27 grueling hours, John fell unconscious and passed away shortly after, likely from cardiac arrest brought on by his position and internal pressure. It was a devastating end to what began as a joyful family outing. In the aftermath, the decision was made not to recover John's body due to the risks involved. Instead, Nutty Putty Cave was sealed permanently, filled with concrete and left as both a tomb and a somber memorial. His death led to widespread changes in cave safety policies across the country. Rescue teams reevaluated protocols, and amateur cavers became far more cautious. John's story spread around the world, not just as a cautionary tale, but as a testament to human fragility, bravery, and the limits of rescue. To this day, the entrance to Nutty Putty Cave remains sealed, marked only with a plaque bearing John's name. His story is a powerful reminder that even the most experienced adventurers can be caught off guard, and sometimes nature doesn't give second chances.